I was just responding when she was not meeting my standards, reminding her of the Bible, reminding her of what I prefer. We realized how much more pleasant our home was when we had more self-control in the rebuke category.
The power's in love. The power's in love and the power's in pursuit.
Welcome to the Grace Marriage Podcast. I'm Brad Rhoads.
And I'm Marilyn Rhoads. We're here to help you build a marriage that's stronger, more connected, and full of grace.
I'm Rick Dayton, joining Brad and Marilyn as we bring you weekly conversations designed to inspire and equip you to live intentionally in your marriage.
We'll share practical tips, powerful stories, and strategies to help you and your spouse grow closer and thrive together.
So whether you're just starting out or have been married for years, there's always room to grow. Let's do this together. This is the Grace Marriage Podcast.
This is Brad Rhoads and the Grace Marriage Podcast, and I've got a good friend, a long-term friend, Brandon Swanner on the podcast. Brandon is the former worship pastor at my church, Pleasant Valley, and I co-pastored with him, and he's now the lead worship pastor at Summit Church, Fort Myers, Florida. He does recordings, he does worship songs, he writes music, he leads music. Uber talented, but more important than that, great guy that loves Jesus and his family. Welcome to the podcast, Brandon.
Hey, Brad. It's good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
So we're gonna rewind when you were in my den in our marriage small group, and I started talking about how wives don't love being preached at. They don't love feeling like they're always, being told what they're doing wrong and told how to do better. And you pushed back on me a little bit on that. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah.
Well, let's hear what you remember.
You were reading the Proverbs and basically using text of scripture about how to love a friend when they need correction. And over and over and over and over, the fool thinks he's wise in his own ways and speaks up too quick, and love covers a multitude of offenses. You read a lot of those kinds of passages. I was a little bothered, thought you were being unbalanced, because the role of a husband as the leader, spiritual leader of his home, is to shepherd his home and to instruct and to correct when needed. And I just thought you were you were being a little unbalanced in your approach at the time, because I thought my job is to correct Tara when she's wrong.
So you're giving some proactive word baths to Tara to help her grow.
Yeah, I was just responding when she was not meeting my standards by allowing her, reminding her of the Bible, reminding her of what I prefer. And yeah, that was our normal rhythm. Tara would, or either of us, frankly, would mess up. The other one would be frustrated, speak out corrective words, and hope for the best.
Well, share both by experience, by the word, and just what you've learned, because we're fast forward well over a decade now. And, I talked to a guy recently. He said, my job as spiritual leader is, if I see her doing something wrong that's sinful, that's short of God's standard, it's my job to point it out to her, share with her the word, and then guide her into better paths. And they weren't getting along at all. And I see sometimes preachers will bring their pastoral preaching gifts home, and I don't find that it goes super well, and their wives don't really enjoy it. So obviously the scripture does say wounds from a friend can be trusted. There is a point where you don't let your husband or wife drink a case a night and say, well, to overlook an offense promotes love. We'll be dead in a month, So what would you tell them?
Well, you challenged Tara and I to take a break from rebuking each other. It was a rebuke fast. And I can't remember how long it was. It might have been a month or 2 months. And you just encouraged us to try praying for our spouse on significant issues, overlooking small offenses, small minor things that, you're living with another human being and preferences that we run into all the time, and just see if we're happier, and to see if there was any visible difference on the amount of offense that was created in the home. And we learned really fast. It didn't take us like 2 days, how frequently, because of, the need for self-control, that we're not doing this now. So you had to catch yourself a lot. suddenly became really aware at how often we were rebuking each other. And over time, over the month's time, we realized how much more pleasant our home was when we had more self-control in the rebuke category. It's, again, like you said, it doesn't mean that you don't ever bring up offense, but it does mean we're slow to bring up offense, and it does mean the flavor of our home is one of grace, where we allow our spouse to offend us at times in small ways, because we can absorb those things and it's safe with us, and we know that you're going to fail and it's okay. There was just a joy and a pleasantness that showed up in our home that was really sweet, that we were able to experience pretty early in marriage. We hadn't been married that long. So it was a gift to us to learn that lesson really early, in part. Yeah.
And I ask couples, it's okay. Your spouse has been doing this for 6 years. You've been pointing out. So I want you to like map out for me the progress you've seen based upon your, well, I hadn't seen any. I said, well, whether it should be working or shouldn't be working, it's not working. Car isn't starting.
And this is maybe bad news for some people. Probably the things that annoy you about your spouse, those little small like idiosyncrasies and the day-to-day things, aren't going to change much. You married a human being who lives in certain patterns and has a personality. I think what has changed is my appreciation for how Tara's made. I'm not demanding that she be more like me all the time, and I've learned just to appreciate the way that she is. And I've learned to be at peace, that I don't have to be so upset when things don't go my way. And I think there's something beautiful about deferring. There's something Christ-like about laying down your preferences. Again, if there's sin involved, it doesn't mean that you let perpetual sin go on. I do think there is something to shepherding and washing your wife in the water of the word and your spouse in the word. But there's a winsomeness to it, a patience to it, that you've earned a better voice because you're not always nagging at them about everything that's wrong.
Yeah, it's just, but my mentor, and I've said this in this podcast before, is, whoever's kindest has the most influence.
Yeah.
And nobody enjoys somebody that's just always all over them about stuff. And in most marriages, if you ask them who's the person that's on you the most, who's the person that you thinks you need to change the most of them would say my spouse. And I would love it to switch where you say, who's the person that, thinks you need to change the most? Well, the person that is most impressed with me, the person that just seems, for whatever reason, to think, I'm the bee's knees, to borrow from School of Rock, is my wife or is my husband, but it does take, the thing about husband and wife, it's the only human being in the world that knows all your faults. Like George Strait said, you know the me that gets lazy and fat, but she knows me better than that. Like this lady's interested in him, and he's like, well, I'm going with my wife because she knows everything about me. She knows me better than that and still loves me and adores me. And so there's a beauty in overlooking an offense. There's a beauty in Tara knowing everything bad about you, knowing your outbursts, knowing the things that have occurred, knowing the things you said you shouldn't say, knowing all that, and nobody in the world looks up to you, respects you, or thinks more of you than Tara Swanner. That's a cool thing.
Yeah. It's the closest thing that we have to the love that God has for us, who sees all of our offenses and all of our brokenness, and in ways that, no one else can, in real time, and still loves us more than we could imagine. So what's the whole Emmanuel mantra? It's like, I've got great news for you, that you're more sinful than you could ever imagine, but more loved and accepted than you could ever dream. Mm-hmm. Those things are true because God knows us, knows all of our problems, and still loves us in ways that isn't matched.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And that's husband, wife, Christ, the church. It's why it's the relationship that's analogized to Christ and the church, is the husband and wife relationship. And make delight primary. There's a lot of things about me Marilyn wishes were different. It would make Marilyn's life better if it was different. There's a lot of things about Marilyn that would be different and make my life easier and better if they were different. They're not. And to your point, they're not going to be. And the beauty is, it's me, this unique creation of Marilyn Rhoads. Brad just loves her. I just choose to love you as you are, and she chooses to love me as I am. Then marriage works. But if it's something where we're always trying to improve the other, to quote make them better or make them better for us, it creates a very contentious relationship. Proverbs, it's like constant dripping, or, there's all kinds of proverbs, better on the corner of a roof. And I know it says a quarrelsome wife, but, I would say wives, if they've got a controlling husband that's giving me input all the time, I'd say she'd try to find her own little corner of a roof too. So
For sure. And in mine and Tara's relationship, I'm the nagger. So, that it just makes more sense to look at it, with me in that position. I'm the one who's going to speak up faster. Tara rarely nags. She honestly could speak up more for herself in our home. So she's just not built to nag. So that principle certainly applies to me. There was a stretch of time, it was maybe a year ago, when Tara was struggling. We had like a couple of month stretch where we just weren't vibing and things weren't connecting. And she just looked like she was carrying a lot and wasn't thriving. And I found myself frustrated at her instead of compassionate for her. And God gave me this picture of a plant that had been like left in your house and uncared for. And it just wasn't thriving. It wasn't growing. It wasn't producing fruit. And it's natural for something like that to struggle when it's not being loved and cared for. And God kind of showed me this image of my wife as a beautiful, flower that he's put in my home, that when she's struggling, it might be a direct reflection on my care for her and my investment in her. And beautiful, thriving things thrive because they've received love and delight and care and attention. So I've just received that as a rebuke and a challenge from the Lord to pour into Tara when she's struggling instead of come at her with her problems. And that's always seemed to work.
Well, there's a scripture in Ecclesiastes, pity the man that falls and has no one to help him up. So kind of a picture I have is say that I drive by and your car is just spinning in a ditch and you're stuck. Your car's falling. You can't get out of the ditch. And I stand on the side of the road and tell you over and over to get out of the ditch. Would you get out of the ditch? Would you get your car out of the ditch? Would you quit making more ruts? Would you quit throwing mud? Would you quit getting me dirty? Would you quit? That's what we do in marriage. Now what you would do, how do you get the car out of the ditch? You hook a chain to it. You get a car, you get a truck, you pull it out, you get it out of the ditch, and you get it right. So in marriage, when you see people take offense at the manifestation, the mud that's slinging, the car that's not moving, as opposed to helping the person out of the ditch and helping the person that's fallen and help them up. Through love, through kindness, through pursuit, not through griping and bickering that you're not doing well. And most spouses, when spouses need the other the most, what do they get? Would you please do better? Would you quit doing that? Mm-hmm. And I don't find oftentimes, thank you for sharing that beautiful wisdom with me. And now I've got clarity on my path forward and the energy to change. And man, and just, it doesn't work that way. The power's in love. The power's in love and the power's in pursuit. So I love the plant analogy. Plants aren't taken care of, they don't thrive. And that's why when, in our last episode, I said when you were earnest, but your wife was tired, and you were tired too, frankly. You were tired from doing too much ministry, and she was tired from you doing too much ministry and not spend enough time with her. So, my encouragement would be to overlook an offense promotes love. Make criticism and rebuke the exception, not the rule. Have the 10-1 rule, 10 pieces of affirmation for one piece of input. The people that I enjoy least in my life is when I know if they call me, they're upset about something. Mm-hmm. We've all got that guy or that gal. You just know that. Do you have anybody at church ever, Brandon, that if you hear from them, they think you did something wrong?
Yeah, I haven't been in Florida long enough to get as many of those as I did in Kentucky, but yeah, they happen for sure. Yeah, for sure.
And you don't want to be that person. There's usually for those in senior leadership, there's usually 5 to 8 people in a church that 95% of the input comes from.
Yep.
Right now, if somebody said somebody's upset at our church, I can narrow it down to 6 this minute. And I'd be right most of the time. So
yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
So in marriage, don't be that person. Be the person that gives unmerited favor, grace, unconditional love. That's the biggest fan. And for some, it's easier than others. Some are naturally positive. That's my son. It's more of a battle that their gift is they can see what's wrong and fix it. And that's what makes them great in life and what they do. But they've got to really battle because they see what's wrong in people and want to fix it. Mm-hmm. And when they do that, it becomes a relational barrier.
What makes this hard is that you can't fake that. Like if you're giving those 10 affirmations and you don't really believe any of them, you're just trying to use that to get to the negative. It doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't work. You actually have to be somebody who really does delight in the person that you're bringing this information to. Yeah. And that takes work. It takes time. It takes attention. It takes investment. It takes prayer. It takes self-control. I'm a big firm believer in love being basically self-control. Can I seize my initial reaction to whatever just happened enough that I can lovingly react in the moment to the person who's in front of me? Keep my stuff in check to do the right thing for the person who's in front of me. And, you got to have some self-awareness and you got to do some work to be able to do that well.
Yeah, it's battle to delight. We do the eye exam in Grace Marriage. People come in frustrated with one another, then they focus on what they love about one another. Listen, the next thing you know, they're just crazy about one another. I mean, one of the exercises we have in Grace Marriage, you focus on all the positives and you speak it. I had a dude right after the session, so I'm going to have to leave and go get a room. He's like, he was saying, it's like he went from frustrated at her to like so into her, man. He didn't even know if he could make it through the session, so. But you're right. If it's fake and it's just to get to the criticism, it's kind of like an interview where you didn't get the job. You get that first line, you're an amazing candidate, an amazing young man with an amazing future. And if that's the first sentence, then it's saying, however, we had a lot of good applicants and you're not to be, so it's, when you can tell when the affirmation's just to get to the rebuke, so.
And all of us can tell watching you too, mm-hmm. So you can only bring who you actually are to wherever you're leading or wherever you're working or wherever you find yourself. Live, work, and play is what we say at Summit. Bring your whole self to wherever you live, work, and play, and be an authentic witness of the gospel to the watching world. And, it takes a lot of work on the self and in your home to bring something beautiful to those spaces. But it's great work and it's priority work. It needs to be done.
Yeah, it's like to delight in someone, you have to know you're delighted in. So it's like those that feel like they're falling short and they're working hard and they're pressured and they're trying to be what they ought to be, they tend to be very critical people. Those that feel delighted in by God and they're just like, I know God looks at me and he's pleased. I know God looks at me and he thinks I'm unique, amazing, and awesome. I know I'm totally forgiven. I'm under grace. I walk in confidence. And those folks don't have as much difficult delighting in other people. But those folks that really feel like they're just always striving to be what they think they ought to be, they get really frustrated because they may be bad, but other people are worse. So my encouragement would be rest in God. If you are in Christ, you're an adopted son or daughter of the King. You are delighted in. You are forgiven. You are sanctified. It's not you're just this dirty human that every time God glances your way, Jesus dives in front of you to avoid God having to see what a messed up, jacked up human you are. So it's an identity piece. How you see yourself will largely dictate how you see others, including your wife.
100%. A lot of times we're just projecting our own problems on other people, trying to justify our own narrative and our own story. And the way my counselor says that he can learn more about somebody when they say a few words about someone else in their life than he can if they talk an hour about themselves. The way we speak about other people reveals so much about who we are and where we're at in life. If it's laced with grace, if it just reeks of delight, if you're speaking slowly with self-control and care for others, that person has experienced exactly what you're talking about. Even if they can.
Yeah, I love the joke. We got guys moving from one city to another. And he goes, I'm moving to Owensboro, Kentucky. He goes, how are the people like here? He goes, well, where'd you live before? Well, I lived out in, Denver. He goes, well, how are the people in Denver? Well, they're backbiting. They're kind of gossipy. They're cliquish. They're this, they're that. And he goes, well, how are they here? He goes, well, they're about the same. It's like, because you're going to, it's like the problem is you. It's not like who you're around. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, 100%. If you're in a pastoral interview for membership, and the person spends the whole time talking bad about their previous church, you're probably going to be doing their exit interview where they're saying the same things about your church pretty soon. A lot of it is about the heart, not to discount real hurt that people experienced in churches and settings. I think those things really happen. But if that's what's spilling out of them first in the interview, it's usually a perspective issue. And, my daughter looked back at her siblings in the car on our 15-hour drive here to Kentucky just a few days ago. And she rebuked her brother and said, joy is a choice, and you could be happy right now if you wanted to be. And she was preaching the gospel to that kid. That's the truth. We can, if we have access to inconceivable joy at all times. As a Christian, it's our birthright. If we would just stop sabotaging it, that would be our experience in life. Now, that's a easy thing to say and a hard thing to do. But if we can learn to be at peace and at ease and enjoy the privilege of being sons and daughters of God, then suddenly our lives look very different. And that's the work.
Yeah, I totally agree. Brandon, thanks for sharing, and thanks for being on the podcast. And like at Grace Marriage, our mission is to give you a vehicle and a platform to grow in these things, where you work together, where you're reminded you're delighted in, where you're given places to communicate, focus on what's positive, schedule dates. And we're so thankful, Brandon, that your church, Summit Church, is launching Grace Marriage at Fort Myers. We're grateful that you invest in your own marriage. I'm the most grateful for your friendship. So, Brandon, thanks for being on the podcast. Thank you for being an amazing friend. Real quick, tell people where they can find your music, though, because Brandon is a elite musician, and you'll be blessed by hearing his music. So if somebody wants to say, I want to hear what this dude sounds like, where do they find you?
I appreciate that opportunity. Let me say this first. I cannot speak highly enough of our experience in Grace Marriage. We've had the privilege of walking side by side with Brad and Marilyn in the early days of this thing, and it has influenced our lives in incalculable ways. It has been one of the most meaningful things that God has given us as a gift on our journey that we've ever had. And so it's a brilliant container, but God has just shown favor to Grace Marriage in the model, and we believe in it wholeheartedly. We're championing it everywhere we go, and we're so glad to get to step into it in Florida now coming up. So that's my 2 cents toward Grace Marriage. We love it and have been significantly influenced by it. To find any of the work that I've done for music on any of the streaming platforms, you can just look up Brandon Swanner. Under my name, there'll be a few worship records I've released over the years, a couple singles. That's the easiest way to get plugged in and find. You can follow me on Instagram. There's some news and things like that there. I'm always writing right now to try to release a few pieces here coming up. So I'd love for you to check it out and let me know what you think.
All right. Well, Brandon, thanks for being on the podcast. And man, thanks so much for giving us your time.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on the Grace Marriage Podcast. We really hope you're feeling inspired to take intentional steps to grow in your marriage.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us spread the message of grace and reach even more couples.
And if you have a moment, please leave us a review. Your feedback means a lot to us and helps others discover the podcast.
To learn more about how you can grow in your marriage, visit us at gracemarriage.com. Keep building stronger, grace-filled marriages.
We'll see you next week on the Grace Marriage Podcast. Until then, keep growing in grace.